Daf Tzadi Amud Beis will begin Daf Tzadi Amud Aleph, the Mishnah at the bottom of the Amud. Zok the Mishnah, Zav Sharash De Riyas, Zav who had 2 Riyas. He had 2 discharges. So the law is that the Zav, a person sees a Riyah, has a discharge of Zivus. If he sees 2 Zivas, a Ziva on one day, 1 Ziva on 2 consecutive days, meaning on one day he saw 1 Ziva, the next day he also had 1 Re'iyah of Zivas, then he is a Zav Bal Shtei Re'iyas, he has to keep 7 Zayin Nakim, 7 completely clean days. And after the Zayin Nakim, he has to be Taivel. He's Taivel in the Mayim Chaim, in the spring water. If he sees 3 Zivas, he sees 3 different Re'iyas, different discharges, then he has to, on the 8th day, he has to bring a korban. So he has to have 7 Zayin Nakim, and on the 8th day, he has to bring a korban. So now, as a Zav Rosh Day Re'iyos, he saw 2 Re'iyos, Shech them alav b'shvi. On the 7th day, you can shech the Pesach for him. Now, even though that it's the 7th day, he's not completely tohar until nightfall. Even though he's allowed to go to the mikveh to be toivel on the 7th day, but he's not completely tohar until nightfall. Nevertheless, you can shech the korban Pesach for him, because at the time of the achila, when he has to eat it, he will be tohar. So you can shech it for him. But Rosh Shalosh, but if he saw 3 Re'iyos, which means that on the 8th day he has to bring a korban, so he's not eligible to eat the kodshim until the 8th day after he brings the korban, shachtam lavish mini shaloi. You can shech the korban Pesach on the 8th day, even if he did not yet bring his korbanos, but on the 8th day prior to bringing the korbanos, you can shech the korban Pesach for him, as long as it's still possible, there's enough time in the day that he can bring the korban. Shemeres Yom Keneged Yom, if you have a woman who's a Shemeres Yom Keneged Yom. So a woman who is a Zova, meaning on the 11 days between Nida and Nida, she saw a Re'iyah. So then, if she's a Shemeres Yom Keneged Yom, meaning if she sees 1 Re'iyah during that period of time, then on the 2nd day, then she's a Re'iyah 1 day, the 2nd day has to be a completely clean day. And therefore, on that 2nd day, if she's Toivel, by nighttime, she'll be completely tar. So, Shechtem Allah B'Sheni Shalom, you can shech on the 2nd day. Because by nighttime she will be completely tar, she'll be able to eat the korban Pesach. Rosh Shnei Yomim, if she saw on 2 consecutive days, so therefore that means that she has the 3rd day, she has to be completely tar. Then Rosh Shnei Yomim, Shach Nala B'Shlishi, so you can shech for her on the 3rd day. Even after she went to the mikveh, she can shech her on the 3rd day, even though she's not completely torah at this point, because by nightfall she will be, and she can eat from the korban Pesach. But if she's a zava gedola, meaning she saw 3 consecutive days, in that case she has to count zayin nakim, and she has to bring the korban on the 8th day. Shech nala b'shmini. Then you shech the korban on the 8th day. You can shech the korban Pesach for her on the 8th day, even if she has not yet brought her korbanos for zivus, because she has the ability to bring the korbanos, which will render her by nighttime tahira, and she'll be able to eat the korban Pesach. Like we see from the Mishnah, you can shech the korban Pesach and do the zrikas adam on Tul Yom on somebody who is Tomei and went to the mikveh, and by nightfall will be tar, or somebody on the 8th day who was already toivel and now still has to bring his korbanos, even though they have not yet brought the korbanos. You can check the korban Pesach for them, because by nightfall it's assumed that the korbanos will have been brought, then they can eat from the korban Pesach. But the ain't shach nimzarkim al Tomei Sheretz. But if a person is Tomei Sheretz and has not yet gone to the mikveh. Now, even though theoretically by nightfall he could eat the korban Pesach, if he went to the mikveh, if he goes to the mikveh rather, and by nightfall he'll be Torah can eat the Korban Pesach. But at this stage, he has not yet gone to the mikveh. So at this stage, it's not automatic that he will be Torah by nightfall. There, if he's a Tomei Sheretz, not a Tful Yom, he's a Tomei Sheretz where he has not yet gone to the mikveh, even though theoretically he could, but ain't Sheikh Zarkim. You cannot bring the Korban Pesach on his behalf. But Ula says, Ula argues and he says, no, even on a Tomei Sheretz you could, because he can go to the mikveh and it'll be Torah by nightfall. What's the difference? You're telling me by a Tful Yom you can check the Korban Pesach for him because he'll be royal, be Torah at night time, he can eat the Korban Pesach. Well, Tomei Sheretz, Nami Chazal Urta. Someone with Tomei Sheretz also, he'll be fit by nightfall. He can go to the mikveh and he'll be Torah by nighttime. Or answers Mechusar Tefillah. Yeah, but right now he's still missing the Tefillah. So it's not automatic. He's still missing the Tefillah. He's Mechusar that Maisa of Tefillah of going to the mikveh. Frankly, more Tful Yom Nam Mechusar of Shemes, but Tful Yom also, at the moment, he's still lacking. He still needs nightfall. And he, at this point in time, right now, he can't eat the Korban Pesach. Or answer Shimshim Me'elarva. Yeah, but that happens automatically. The sun sets automatically. There's nothing that he has to do. So inevitably, he will be Torah by nightfall and be able to eat the Korban Pesach. Well, why do you say in the case of the Mishnah that someone was Mechutzer Kippurim on the 8th day you can check the Korban Pesach for him? Well, he's lacking Maisa. It's not automatic. He has to still bring his Korbanos to enable him to eat from the Korban Pesach at night. More answer, Shekina Biyada. Rav will say that the case is talking Dafka where he has the birds of his Tahara, of the Korbanos, they're in his hands, they're readily available, and therefore it's not considered lacking because the birds for the Korbanos are right here, and they'll be makravit. So, well, by the Tomei Sheretz also, why should it be considered lacking? There's a mikveh right here. He can go right into the mikveh and be taival, and therefore, why do we say over there that you can't check there? My answer is Dilma Pasha. Maybe he'll be Paisheya, he'll be negligent, and he won't go to the mikveh. Well, if it's Mechutzer Kippurim, also Dilma Pasha, maybe he'll be Paisheya, and they will not bring the korbanos. The more answers keep going to Masr Bezdin. It's talking where he gave over the birds to Bezdin, and since it's in the hands of Bezdin, we can rely that they're going to be makar the korbanos, and therefore we say it's not lacking, and he'll be able to eat the korban at night. If we had to rely on him, on the Baalim, perhaps we would not. But we're talking specifically on a case where the korbanos, the birds, are already handed over to Bezdin. Okay, and we're going according to the sheet of Rosh Hashanah, the Amr, who says, Chazaka ein Bezdin shel Kahanim ma'im d'misham. There's a Chazaka, we can rely on the fact that the Bezdin of Kahanim will not leave the Azara ad sheyichlu ma'isha b'shofros, until the money that was in the collection boxes, the money that were there to set aside for the Hakrovos the korbanos, they will not leave until they were makriv all the korbanos. And therefore, we can rely over here that if the birds were given to the Kahanim, that they certainly will be makriv it, and he will be certainly torn and able to eat the Korban Pesach at night. So it will come there out according to Rav. Therefore, that really midaraisa, you're telling me that even if the person did not go to the mikveh, he was talking to Masechet and had not yet gone to the mikveh. Really, that you say, well, you should be able to shep the Korban Pesach for him because he has the ability to go to the mikveh, and by nighttime he will be able to eat from the Korban Pesach. It's a gzeira upon the Gaza because he's might be Peshen, not go to the mikveh. Rav, how could that be? Rav said, Metamen echad behem b'sheretz. If you have that on Yudalad Benisan, 50% of the tzibur is Torah, 50% is Tomei. So what do you do in such a case? The Rav says you are metamem, one of the people with the Tumah Sheretz. Therefore, you have a majority of the tzibur which are Tomei, and you can bring the Korban Pesach B'tumah. It's a korban baba tumah. Now, you're telling me that you're metamech misheretz, which means that he's considered to be tomei, not eligible to bring the korban pesach. However, we have a roiv of the tzibur that is now not eligible to bring the korban pesach. It's a pesach, a bal batuma. They're not pushed off to pesach shein. Well, how can that be? So, how can you say that you are metamem with a sheretz? Well, why would it be a korban bal batuma? Someone is tamem batuma sheretz. If you're telling me that in the raisa he's chazi, you can shach for him. So why would that disqualify him from the korban pesach, and therefore consider it like you have a roiv of the tzibur that can't bring the korban pesach, and therefore we say it's a tzibur and it's brought betuma, it's doiche the tuma. You're telling me the raisa, the fact that he's talking with the tuma sheretz, you could bring the korban pesach for him, so he's not a candidate for somebody that would have been pushed off to pesach sheni, and therefore tips the balance and makes a roiv tzibur tameh. So that can't be the pshat. El Gemara says, the right it must be according to Rav that someone is a tameh to masheretz. He has not yet gone to the mikveh. Min hatayra, he's not roy for the korban pesach. It's not only dilma pasha. He's midaraisa not roy. Dirshu, the pasuk says, Ish ki tameh lanefesh. If a person is tameh lanefesh, if he's tameh from a tumas meis, so then it says he's pushed to Pesach Sheni. Aren't we talking while he's talking about the tumas meis, even if it's the 7th day of his tumah, meaning that by night tafal he will be tor, the hainu tumas sheretz. As the Torah says, nevertheless, that you're doichet, and that you're doichet to Pesach Sheni. So you see that even though at nighttime they will be tor, nevertheless they cannot bring the korban pesach. You can't shove the korban pesach for them, and they're nitcha to Pesach Sheni. Maybe you'll say, how do we know that that's in fact the case? Maybe that it's talking about where it's not the 7th day, that we're talking about on the earlier days, and that he won't be Torah at night, and that's why he's Nitchel Pesach Sheni. But perhaps it would be the 7th day where he would be Torah at nighttime. That would not be the case. The more answers several like Rav Yisrael. Rav holds like Rav Yisrael, the Omer, who says Tmei meis mitzahayu, that the people who came and to Moshe Rabbeinu, and they said, Lama Nigara, why can we not do the Pesach, Korban Pesach? What was the circumstance? They were people who were Tmei Meis Mitzvah. They were Isaac in the burial of a Meis Mitzvah, of people who didn't have others to take care of their Kvora. And Shachal Shviyah Shalem Liyos Ber Pesach. So they were Tomei with Tomei Mitzvah, a Meis Mitzvah, and it was now the 7th day. So it was the 7th day of their Tahara. Because how do we know that? It says they were not able to do the Korban Pesach, to bring a Korban Pesach on that day. This mashma that implies that today they couldn't, but tomorrow they could, which therefore implies they were the 7th day, the last day of the Tahar from the Meis. Today they can't, tomorrow they could. Therefore, on that day, you can't have a mochayim lases, but tomorrow you could. So therefore you see that even though they're on the 7th day, the Torah says, nevertheless, they have to be pushed off to Pesach Sheni. So therefore you see that even though it's the 7th day, that they cannot do the Korban Pesach. Similarly, a Tomei Sheretz, that it's before he went to the mikveh, even though he has the ability to go to the mikveh and be Torah at night, nevertheless, ain't shaykh them, you can't shaykh the Korban Pesach for him. Places ask the question, how do we know? Yes, it's on the 7th day. There's a diuk that these people were Tomei Meis Mitzvah and Ishvi, because it says by Yoimahu, but how do you know that we're talking that they didn't go to the mikveh? Maybe they went to the mikveh. And even they went to the mikveh, still they're nitchel Pesach Sheni. Now we're making a chilek and saying if they already went to the mikveh, then you could shach because they automatically be Torah. But if they haven't gone to the mikveh, then you can't. Well, how do you know? Maybe from this pasuk, it's from the 7th day, And maybe it's teaching you that even though they already went to the mikveh, still they're nidchel Pesach Sheni. Tosfos answers because the pasuk says that they were tomei. The pasuk says ki tomei, and if they went to the mikveh already, the tumah has been weakened. So therefore, we're talking where that it's considered a tomei gomer, the completely tomei, which means that they had not yet gone to the mikveh. So says, why do they have to get pushed off the Pesach Sheni? So just tell them, go to the mikveh, go be toivel. And if they're big toivel, then they can now be shayach to Mizarik, because they're saying that it's full yom shayach to Mizarik. Tosfos answers that they could. They didn't have to be pushed off. Moshe Rabbeinu was just telling them that if you don't go to the mikveh, then you will be pushed off the Pesach Sheni. Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, Zav Sharash they realize Azav that sought to discharge the Shechel B'Shvi, that you can shecht for him on the seventh day. My love, the light Tovel, are we not talking where he had not yet gone to the mikveh? Ushmamina Shechel Mizarkim al Tomei Sheretz. Doesn't that teach you that you Shechel Mizarkim on a Tomei Sheretz even before he went to the mikveh? And the Gemara says, Loi the Tovel. We're talking where he already went to the mikveh. In fact, the Gemara Tovel, my Kamashlan, what's the Chiddush? Our answer is HaKamashlan, the Hafagav, the Mechus Ha'erev Shemesh. It's teaching us that even though it's not yet nightfall, and even though right now he can't eat from the Korban Pesach, but Kamashlan, the Shimshim Mela Arva. It's teaching this Chiddush that even though right now he cannot eat from it, but since it happens automatically, then Shayach Zarachim. And Zok the Gemara Hachnam Mistamer, and it's Mistamer to say it as follows, because Meliktan is Sefer, it says in the Sefer Sholosh Riyos, if it's all 3 Shechtam Elam Vishmini, then you can shecht on the 8th day. Iramid Bishlama Zav Rasho Shtei Shechtam Bishvi. So therefore, I would understand if you tell me the case of Shtei Riyos, that he shecht from the 7th day. The Tovel, it's talking already when he was already Tovel, therefore Itzrech. Therefore, I need the second case by the Sholosh Riyos and Shechtam Bishmini. Why is that? Because I might have thought that it's specifically in the case of the 2 Riyos where he's not Mechusar Mais, he's not lacking any action. The Bishim Shememele will happen automatically. But I might have said about Rosh Sholish Rivishmini, the Mechusar Maisa, but I might have thought it was 3 Riyos, and it's the 8th day, where you're still lacking a Maisa, you have to bring the Korbanos. Mechusar Kapora Loi, but over there, since he's missing the Maisa, bring the Kapora, I might have thought it's not considered automatic, and I might have thought Ein Shayachtim V'Zarkim Kamash Malan, Da'af Lagav, the Mechusar Kipora Shayachtim V'Zarkim Al. Therefore, it has to teach me this Chiddush and gives me the case of the Sholosh Riyos, the Shayach Mizargim B'Shmini. Ella, however, Iyama Rosh Tei Riyos B'Shvi, Deloit Tovel, Rosh Sholosh B'Shmini, Lama Li. But if you tell me the case of one of the 2 Riyos, where he had not been gone to the mikveh, he had not been Tovel, where he's in Mechusar Maisa, so why do you need the case of B'Shmini? If you already told me that a case of 2 Riyos, that on the Shvi where he had not yet gone to the mikveh, the Tomei Mali, he's completely Tomei. And Shachtin V'Zarkin Alvei, and nevertheless you're telling me you can shaft the korban for him, Rosh Holish B'Shmini, if he saw 3 and it's the 8th day, the Tovel. Where he already had gone to the mikvah the earlier day, the day prior on the 7th day. The Klisha Tumah, so the Tumah has already been less, and Lokal Shekain, the Shachtin of Zarkin Lave certainly would say that you shaft the korban for him. Elash Mamino, Rosh de Riyos, Bishvi, the Shachtin Allah, the Tovel. Must be that the case of 2 Riyos is where he was already Tovel. And therefore it teaches me the case of Bishmini, that even though he's Mechusar Maisa and he still has to bring the Korbanos, nevertheless we can rely on the fact that the Kahanim are going to bring the Korbanos and Shachtim Zarkin. Where's his light? It's not a right. Really, I can tell you that about Shtei Riyos, that we say that Shaktin V'Zarkim, the Shvi is where he did not go to the mikveh, even though he's a Mechusar Meiser. And still, nevertheless, V'Isrech, you still need the case of Baal Sholosh Riyos B'Shmini. Why is that? Because B'Shvi, who I might have said on the seventh day, the B'Yol Sakin. It's on the seventh day where even if he had not gone to the mikveh, but he has the ability to do it. But on the eighth day, where it's not in his hands to bring the korban, he's relying on others. He's relying on the Kohanim. I might think the Kohanim. Therefore, he teaches the Chiddush like Rosh Hashanah that we can rely on the Kohanim. It's chazaka that the Kohanim will carry out their duties. Azava, we can shech the Korban Pesach, bring it for on the eighth day. Tanatan coming to Ravada Bar Ava, Azava shechtalam v'shvishal. Now he learned that you can shech it on the seventh day. Omar Lei, he said to the one who taught his Bryce Azava v'shvishal me chazia. How can you do it on the seventh day? What do you mean? I feel the man that shecht and zarek Tommy Sheretz, even according to the one that says you can shecht and zarek for Tommy Sheretz, even though he had not yet gone to the mikveh, but that's honey mil Tommy Sheretz. That's not going to be Tommy Sheretz, because even if he hadn't gone to the mikveh, but he will be Torah at nighttime automatically, he'll be Torah at nighttime, and after he went to the mikveh. So therefore, he could eat from the Korban Pesach. Meaning, even if you say that Shech Tzar or Tommy Sheretz, where he had not yet gone to the mikveh, and he's a Mechusar Ma'aseh, but since he has the ability to go to the mikveh, and he will therefore, after he goes to the mikveh, automatically be Torah at night, and he can eat from the Korban Pesach, he can Shech and Zarek. But over here on the Zava, how can you shech on the seventh day at nighttime? She's not going to be able to eat from the Korban Pesach. She has to wait till the eighth day and bring her karbanos. It means that she can shech and zerk on the eighth day. In fact, more pshita. Well, of course. Why did the Bryce have to tell me that? It's the Charapasit. Gemara says, no. Mao the same the Mechasar Kapara Loi. You might think that since she's lacking the Kapara and the Korban, the Maisa bring the Korban has to be still done. And since she's relying on the Kohanim to do it, therefore you would say you can't be Shaykh V'Zerek, that you can rely on the Kohanim. Ravina Omar, he says, Nida Tanakame. What he learned was not a Zava, what he taught was a Nida. With a Nida, where she doesn't have to bring Korbanos, and by nighttime, then she will be Tahira, by nighttime she'll be able to eat the Korban Pesach. So he says, Nida Tanakame. He taught Nida. V'anida Shaykh L'Bashvi. Not that the Zava, but a Nida you can check for the seventh. Amr Lei said to him, Nida Vashi Mitahazia. What do you mean Nida on the seventh day? Is she Roish? She can't go to the mikvah on the seventh day, and she's not going to be able, therefore, to eat the Korban Pesach at nighttime. Because I feel Laman Dama Shaktim Zorachim Tommy Sheretz, even if you'd say the Shaktim Zorachim Tommy Sheretz, meaning even if he hasn't yet gone to the mikvah, but that's only there in the Chazal Urta, where if he does go to the mikvah, he'll be able to eat the Korban Pesach at nighttime. But Nida L'Urta Shriyahu the Tava. But the Nida, she is not Taivel until the night, after the 7 days, till the nighttime. And at Shmini, Dav the Her Shemesh, and she won't be able to eat from the Korban Pesach until the next day, until after the 8th day, where since she's doing Tefillah after the 7 days of the nightfall, she needs a hair of Shemesh in order for her to be able to eat the kachim. Now the hair of Shemesh, the nightfall, the occurrence of the nightfall after the Tefillah will not occur until the next day, after the 8th day. So therefore, she won't be able to eat the Korban Pesach in the night following the 7th. So how can you shecht for her on the Korban Pesach on her 7th day? Ella ema b'shmini. So rather, ena chanami. It doesn't mean on the 7th, it means on the 8th. Frankly, more pshita? Well, of course. What's the chiddush? Hashto ma zava the mechasir kapar. Madach the zava, that she has to bring her korbanos. But nevertheless, Shechtem Zorach Labishmini, you can shechter on the 8th day. Nida, Lamachasi Kapora, Tzrich Lamemer, the Shachtin of Zarkina Anida, she doesn't have to do anything. If she was Toivel on the night after the 7th, then in the nightfall after the 8th day, there's nothing lacking. It's going to happen automatically, so of course you can shecht the Korban Pesach for her if her 8th day falls out on Yudala Ben Nisan. Mordechai says no. Nida tzricha. Nevertheless, you do need the halacha of nida. Hakamashmalan b'shmini b'shvili. It's telling you this deal. Davke b'shmini. It's not a chiddush that it's a shmini, but it's telling you that shmini only on shmini and not on the 7th. To teach me that by a nida, as opposed to other tumas, the tefillah going to mikveh, the tefillah of a nida cannot occur on the 7th day. It has to occur only on the night following. So hakamash mashmini b'shviloi. Kinasayim, like we learned in the Brisa, kol chalech hayvei tefillah tefillah b'yom. It says that tefillah is on the daytime, and therefore the reference over there is if the 7th day, for instance, falls on Yom Kippur, even though you can't bathe on Yom Kippur, but you could, because it's tefillah's mitzvah, you could do it. However, nida v'yoledes tefillah b'layla, but the nida v'yoledes, their tefillah is on the night following, so therefore they're not allowed to go to the mikveh on Yom Kippur if the 7th day falls on Yom Kippur. The Sanya Yochel Dei Toiveles Mi Yoim. You might think that a nida is toivel on the day of the 7th. Talmud Loimar Shivas Yom Te B'nidasa. The 7 days she has to be in B'nidasa, in her status, in her state of nidas, of separation. Tehei B'nidasa Kol Shiva, which applies from here that Tehei B'nidasa, the entire 7 days she's in a state of being a nida. And therefore, she can't go to the mikveh on any part of the 7th day. Even on the 7th day itself, she cannot, as opposed to, for instance, a Tomei Meis that could, she cannot. She has to wait till nightfall. And so that's by a nida. How do I know Yoledes? V'yoledes is kish l'nida. But there's a hekesh in the pasuk, since there's a hekesh in the pasuk between a Yoledes and a nida. And therefore, since we have that hekesh, we say by a Yoledes also, therefore, she cannot be toivel in the daytime. She has to be toivel on the nighttime. It says, Kimei nidas devoisa titma, that it says by Yoledes, by a woman who gives birth, Kimei nidas devoisa titma, and therefore, just like a nida, that the tefillah has to be after the 7 days, the Yoledes also, the tefillah has to be, and the nightfall after the 7 days.